Onika, and today I have a very special guest on with me. I just want to do a little recap. 2 segments ago, I would have mentioned my journey to Christianity and what would have made me initially start to take steps in that direction. I would have mentioned to you that I was pregnant at the time and something occurred that caused me to want to terminate the pregnancy. I did not see it fitting to have this discussion without my guest today. So without further ado, I would like to welcome today my guest, Onika.
Hi, good evening to everyone who's watching. Just want to say it was nice being here in the presence of Onika. What can I say?
Okay, let's get right into it. Let me give you a little background as to what really happened. I was 4 months pregnant and I discovered that Onika, coincidentally, was also pregnant, same time as me, by the same person. I felt like I would die actually. It was heart-wrenching, it was embarrassing, and not because of who it was, but how could you get 2 girls pregnant with the same name? And my name is not Lisa, Tracy, nor Nicole. So it was hard. It was a hard pill to swallow. It was a pride jab for me. It did something to my pride. I am not usually a very proud person, but it made me go into myself and think about all the people that would be laughing and all the people that would have been talking about me. And I really thought the best thing to do would have been to terminate the pregnancy. I'll give you a little insight into how I would have met her. I knew her in the past. We were not friends or anything. We would have rallied in the same circles at some point in time. But one day I decided I was going to find this girl to see if what I had heard was the truth. So I went on Facebook, found her pictures, and I decided there was a landmark that I noticed in more than one of the pictures. And a friend and I set out to find where she lives. And when I found that landmark, I decided this has to be it, because I was not going to ask anybody to get anyone else involved in my little fiasco that I had going on. And I took a deep breath and I said, Lord, I don't know what's going to happen today, but I'm going to find out what the truth is, because I would have already received a story and I wanted to determine if that was the truth. I took a deep breath, I went up the steps and I rang the bell. And she came out to me out. And at that point in time, I could swear it was the devil that said, "Come she belly." But I said, no, that's not what I came here for. But it was just a shock to see another woman pregnant like I am for my partner. She said to me, I was expecting you. And with that, she said, you can come in. And I'll let her tell you what her experience with me coming to her house that day was like. Mind you, we talked for almost 3 hours. It seemed about one thing or the other, but I'll let her tell you her version of the events.
Going back to that day, I was in a frame of mind of more, due to my pregnancy, hormonal. I was very giggly at most of the stuff that went on, but it was not easy, especially dealing with the public eye. It was not easy. You having to just lift up your faith and say, well, I have to go on, my life has to go on in front of everybody else. It was not easy, because everywhere you turn you could just hear, oh, that's Onika, that's Onika, that's Onika, and Onika, and Onika. And I was like, my life still has to go on. But overcoming that situation, it was not easy. I can say it was not easy. And to go into details on that day of the conversation that we both had, it was not what I expected either, because I was expecting this woman to come out here and fight and all of that, but it didn't that direction. It went the other direction, whereas we said no. When two civil adults had a conversation on what really took place, what led me to the situation, what happened, and why it is happening at that point in time. But I'll give it back to Onika.
I remember her saying, well, my friends told me that when you find out about me, you're going to want to fight. And I'm like, me? People have this real misconception of who I am. I am not a fighter, actually. But what I wanted was the truth, and that is why I set out to get. I had a friend, she wanted to go with me, and I told her no, it was fine, because I didn't want a young lady to think that I came with a truth. All I wanted was the truth. And I think after having that conversation, it calmed me. It made me feel better about the situation. Not good, obviously, but I had a different perspective on what happened, and I could only say God. You know, I always say God is always coming to my equations, but it could have only been him that calmed my spirit at that point in time, because I didn't know what to expect, but I was determined that I was going to handle it as civil as I could. I went on to have my baby. She had her son exactly 1 month before I had my daughter. And I remember one day I saw her in 6 roads, and she was going to cross, and I was like, I ain't letting she cross today. I'm very sorry. Nobody ain't saying she with a child. But my daughter said, Mommy, why you don't stop and let her cross? And this feeling just hit me, and I stopped suddenly, and she came across, and she asked, you have the little girl in there with you? And I'm like, yes. Why? Because in my mind, I don't want to be friends, you know. I just wanted to find out what I needed to find out at the time I needed to find it out. But then it was like the Spirit of God came on me again and said, park and help her, because she looked at the time like she needed help. And I stopped and I took the little boy from her, and from that day till now, that little boy calls me auntie. Don't ask me why, but that's what he calls me, and I've accepted that I am his auntie. But that day we took a picture of the 2 children, because at the end of the day they were siblings. I put what had happened behind me, where she was concerned, and I accepted that these are 2 innocent children, and I will not be part of destroying 2 innocent children. And we kind of not bonded or had a relationship, but every now and again I would ask, how is the little boy doing? And one day she said to me, he's good, but I am not. I'm like, but why? She said she had an exam to do and she had nobody to keep him. And my mouth open, but it wasn't me, because I was not going to ask to do anything like that. But my mouth did it for me, and I asked her, you want me to keep him for you? And these children would have had to be probably 4 or so months at the time.
3 months.
3 months, she said. And I said, no problem. When I put on the phone, I was like, what the hell did you just do? You're going to keep your partner's girlfriend's baby? Well, she was not his girlfriend, let me just say. But she was that woman. And I felt like, why did I just do that? But there was always this feeling to help, this overwhelming, I don't know what it was. I don't know if I saw her like a little sister. It was just weird, but I went with that feeling, and I kept this little boy for her that night. And I actually took pictures of the 2 of them together. Probably I'm the only person that has pictures of the 2 kids together. And I didn't feel anything. I mean, he would always cry, at least that's what she would say. But that day that he was with me, he did not cry at all. I remember asking a friend of mine, because I was at work, and I remember asking a friend of mine to meet her with the little boy so I could pick him up in the evening. And my friend was like, your baby? I said, a girl one, because I was too embarrassed to tell her who the baby was or who the mother was. And I knew she probably would not have done it if I did, because I had a lot of pressure from people at that point in time. But I decided I would, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it. What I would do though is ask her how she felt handing over her baby to this stranger. That's what I will ask her today.
Well, at first I was a bit scared, but one thing that kept me going is that I know for sure there was a God above. And I said, well, she asked and she told me she would, and I just trust that she would. And I said, only God can handle this situation. Right now, I got an exam to do, and I got to pass this exam because putting food on the table for my son is very important than just thinking about all the petty things and what people think and what people would think. And to be honest, the little girl is actually his sister. He will get to bond with her. So I felt at first I was scared, but after, it was just a walk on the park for me. I wasn't too bothered anymore on that.
I felt like I took on the role of a big sister to her because I am much older than she is, and I felt like she needed help. I don't know how to explain it. I could not explain it to anybody. My family was always very supportive of the things I did, but it was difficult to tell my friends that I wanted to be there for her. It was strange, but I felt confident and comfortable in what I set out to do. 2 months after that, well, 3 months, my daughter passed away, and it was the hardest time of my life, actually. One of the hardest times of my life. At that moment, I said, but God, this little girl was so big and so healthy, and she never had an issue, and on the other hand, her son was always sick. Why did you take my daughter? And I said that in its most innocent form. I didn't want anything to happen to her son either, but it was difficult to know that God told me to have this baby under the circumstances, and then my daughter died and her son was alive, and it kind of put a wedge in my heart for the situation, not for her or the little boy, but for the situation. And it kind of turned my mind from God for a while. I had to actually ask for forgiveness because I was upset with God. I could not understand why he would do that to me. As I said, I was invited to church and I started to go, and I felt like that's where my healing came from the counseling and experiencing that, the things that would have happened when I first started to go to church. And I remember very vividly at the funeral, I don't know what it was, but I am told it was the Spirit of God that came over me, and I was so calm. I did not cry. I was just there. And I remember wanting to be close to the closest thing to that baby. And I walked over to her, and her son came with me. And everybody's eyes opened so wide, like, what is she going to do with that woman child? This woman crazy, why would she give her child to her, knowing the state she has to be in? But they did not understand that God had a hand in this. God's hand was in it from inception, and it flowed smoothly, and we kind of built a friendship off of that. And I would say God would use any situation, any person, any connector. God will use anything to show his power. I remember about, I would say 3 months after she died, I went to this church, as I said, and I had an experience. It was an experience that I guess I'd been looking for my entire life, and I found it where I went. And I felt like she needed to experience that. And God used me to invite her to church as well. And she came and she had her own experience. And in all of this, God was in the midst. So I just want to let you viewers know that regardless of the situation you're in, regardless of how it looks, be mindful that God is in the midst. It may not feel that way as it didn't for me at the time. It may not look that way, but he is always in the midst. All you have to do is to be still enough and be in a place where your mind is open enough to understand that we may not know where he is, how it will turn out, why we were in it in the first place. But in hindsight, when we look back, we will know that if he was not in the midst, things could have gone so far south. And my message for today is basically this: we all have a choice. We all have a decision to make when it comes to doing good or doing bad. I could have met her and determined that she was the other woman, and I was going to hate her and hate her son. And then God would not have been able to use me to get her to come to him as well. We have a decision to make, and we have to determine if we will let the good that is in us win, or if the bad in us will take over of a situation. And I just urge you, let the good win. It may not look good to people, it may not be the popular thing to do, it may not sound like the best thing to say at any point in time, but good always wins, just like God always wins.
I want to say it to them as well. It's not what looks good to people that matters. It's never what looks good to your friends that matters, or what looks good to your family that matters. It is what matters to you, because when you go to God, he's not going to ask them, he's going to ask you. So in saying that, just be mindful of when you're going to do something bad, how it's going to reflect on you, and how God is going to think of you and what you do at the same time.
So I just want to say thanks to Onika for
It's nice being
coming
here.
to have what would have been a difficult conversation. I just want you to know that we are here to show you winning, that never let a man, never let a situation, never let friends get between what is right and what is wrong. The right always feels right, even if it doesn't look right, even if it doesn't sound right. And God could use anybody, any situation whatsoever. So just trust him and do what is right, and you will be able to see the manifestation of what God can do. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Instagram, Onika Talks. YouTube, Onika Talks. See you next week.